If I ask you to solve this by hand, okay, we talked about this a little bit last class. If I ask you to solve this by hand, what would you do first? Add the 6, right? What would you do? Divide by 2. If you think about doing the same thing for this, what would you do first? Yeah, you'd think, move the 6 over, right? We want to try to get our x's by itself. I get stuck here. What else could we do? Maybe factor out an x? Yeah, but like, I don't know. Does this help me? X times x plus 1 equals 6. It's 2. Oh, we got the answer. It's more than one answer. X is not just equal to 2. X could equal 2, and x could equal -3. Bet you wouldn't have found that if you tried it this way. This is not effective. This is not helping us. With quadratics, when we have x squareds and x's, we can't solve by trying to isolate x. It's just not helpful. We end up with a situation when we're guessing and checking. X times x plus 1 equals 6. I never want a product set equal to a number. That doesn't help us. We will want products, though. But we want products set equal to 0. Well, my friends, we talked about this before. Using your calculator, how can you solve any equation out there? You can graph. And what can you do, Ms. Harvey? You could trace, sure. But you could graph the left side and the right side and see when they intersect. Please do that really quick. Graph y equals x squared plus x minus 6 and graph y equals 0. You won't be able to see y equals 0 because y equals 0 is flat on the x-axis, unless you have one of our fancy colorful calculators. All right. Good. And we graph y equals 0 as well. Second calc intersect. And you can see we're going to be intersecting at 2 different locations. One over here on the left. Oh, that's -3. One over here on the right. That's at 2. Question?
My calculator has something weird on it. Is it from like one of your
I don't know. Let's find out. Oh, maybe. Got your plots off. I think it's actually from one of my algebra students. Because they're stat editing, you can actually graph the stat edit information. Okay, what we see is this. And remember, if we do second calc intersect, understanding that y equals 0 is just our horizontal line right there, we can see and we can find the intersections right there and right there. That's when they cross over each other. Those are what we call the zeros of this quadratic equation. -3 and 2, x equals. What does it mean to be a 0? It actually is the solution to this equation. When we find these zeros, we find the answer to the equation. So this is one way we're going to be solving quadratics. We can graph. Okay? Now, we could, if we wanted to, solve this graphically very quickly. You could graph y equals and y equals. You can find the intersections. But I got a problem if I do that in my standard window. Go ahead and graph the left side and the right side. Yeah. RIP. What's the problem if I graph it in my standard window? You don't see the y equals 14, right? I don't see the y equals 14. I'd have to adjust my window. Well, what we are going to be doing, and we're not going to be graphing all the time, is we're going to want to see things. Instead of isolating your x's and putting your numbers on one side, for the rest of this unit, which is another 5 days, we're going to actually put all of our stuff on one side and 0 on the other side. One of the reasons is like when we graph it, we'll be able to see where it crosses the x-axis, and we can find the intersections quickly. And there's going to be another reason, a couple reasons after that. Okay? Now, go back to this one. There's another way to solve this equation. X squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Nope. Not by isolating the x. It's by using something that we prepared for and we did this class. Factoring. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Can you factor x squared plus x minus 6? Go ahead and write it down. What is the factored form of x squared plus x minus 6? We already know the solutions. We're on the front page again. We already know the solutions to this equation are negative 3 and 2. Okay, we already did it by graphing. We're looking for two numbers that add to get 1 and multiply to get negative 6. Everybody write down those numbers, write down the factored form. Go ahead, write down the factored form of that. What are the two numbers that add to get 1 and multiply to get negative 6? No, we're not doing that. This is one of the easy ones, right? And with the easy ones, we're just looking for two numbers, because I know I can write this as x plus something times x plus something else. Nope. What are they, Ms. Reyes? Huh? What are the two numbers we're looking for?
3 and negative 2.
3 and negative 2. Okay, now remember, using our calculator, we found that our answers to this equation were negative 3 and positive 2. Can we see how you can get negative 3 and positive 2 if you look at this form? We flip them. Why is flipping going to work? Because negative 3 plus 3 is 0. And 0 times anything is 0. Why does 2 work? Because 2 plus negative 2 is 0. And 0 times anything is 0. We're jumping straight into the second half of our notes. Just touching on the important stuff. So, we can solve any equation by graphing. We always know that is something we can do. We can go y equals the left side, y equals the right side, and find the intersection. Now the second one is your homework. But we'll come back to this first one if I want extra examples. What we will be doing for a lot of these equations, and it's actually going to be more efficient than using our graphing calculator and graphing, is we're going to be using this thing called the zero product property, where 0 times anything is 0. Anything times 0 is 0. We know equations like these are quadratic. I know this is a quadratic equation, this is a quadratic equation. We know that because if we distributed, we'd get x squared plus 4x plus negative 21. And we'd get x squared minus 5x if I distributed the x. But watch what's going to be great. If I replace this y with a 0, if I replace this y with a 0, and I ask you to solve this equation, it's going to be much easier to look at this and be able to see the answers right away than to try to solve this actually graphing or using any other method. What would be the values for x that would make this right side 0? Please discuss it with your neighbors and try to understand why. Does 0 work?
Yeah.
No. If I plug 0 in, I would get 0 minus 3 times 0 plus 7. That's negative 21. So that's not going to be an answer. What makes this 0? 3. Since that makes this 0, 0 times, what, 10? Sure, 3 plus 7 is 10. 0 times 10, doesn't matter. 0. So immediately, I get an answer is 3. What makes x plus 7 0? Negative 7. There, those are my two answers. To this equation, which actually seems, and if we talked about it earlier, pretty difficult. 0 equals x squared plus 4x minus 21. You try to solve this by looking at it. You try to solve this by graphing. You could solve it by graphing. But you can't solve it any other way except for this way right now. We can have it in a factored form. We will start with this, put it into a factored form, and then I can just easily see my answers. And let's double check. 3 squared is 9 plus 4 times 3 is 12. What's 9 plus 12? 9 plus 12, 9 plus 12, 9 plus 12. 21. 21 minus 21, 0. Okay, let's try negative 7. What? Negative 7 squared, what's that number? 49. Negative times a negative is a positive, so 49. 4 times negative 7. Negative 28. Somebody in your calculator. 49 plus negative 28. I know what it's going to be. 21. It's 21! Because if I subtract 21, I'm going to get 0. And I know that's an answer. Okay?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When it says what type of equations are these, we're not going to have to answer that, right?
Well, you know it's a quadratic, right?
Oh, okay.
Because it's x times x is x squared. It's quadratic. Will they ask you? No, but you should know.
I said why.
Oh, why would they ask you? I don't know, because like eventually we're gonna, like your midterm, it's like, hey, solve this equation, solve this equation, solve this equation. And you should ask yourself, what type of equation is this? Because your rules differ. For a linear equation, we don't have to factor. For a linear equation like this, you don't factor, you just solve for x, right? But for a quadratic equation, we can't just solve for x. This is the most important lesson. You can't just solve for x. You need a different approach. We can either graph y equals and y equals, or what we're going to focus on the rest of class, is we can factor. Okay? Over here, x times x minus 5. There are two answers to x times x minus 5. What are the two answers to this one? 5 is one of them. What's the other one? Miss Pierce. 0. Why 0? Yeah, that's really it. Because you'd have 0 here, and 0 times anything, doesn't matter what this is 0. So 0 and 5. Oh, what do we got? Thunderstorm warning? Ground alert? Flood?
Honda.
It's a Honda somewhere. Oh gosh, I got a lost Honda. Oh, it's an Amber Alert? It's an Amber Alert.
I guess they'll want to go outside the
No. Well, they stole the girl. That's the problem. Yeah.
What if they were stealing the Honda and the girl was in the car?
That's scary. That's happened before. Like, all right. Really?
Yeah, like a bunch of people.
Oh gosh. All right. All right. Hold on. We gotta go back.
How they expect you to treat
Okay. Now, go back to your other set of notes really quickly. For most of these quadratics, we will have 2 solutions because most quadratics cross through the x-axis twice, right? That means it has 2 zeros. That means it has 2 solutions to your quadratic equaling 0. But will every single quadratic have 2 solutions? Will every single quadratic have 2 solutions? Yeah, no? You could have 1. What would that look like?
It barely touches the thing.
Good. You could either barely touch right here, you could barely touch right there, something like that. Yes, 1. Now, you guys have been told that you have no solutions if you don't cross the x-axis. That means no zeros. That means no left sides equal to the right side of 0. But we will find that you do. However, the solutions are imaginary. Not in that I'm making them up in my mind, is that they have an actual form which will use imaginary numbers. And you guys will be introduced to imaginary numbers because you haven't learned about imaginary numbers yet, have you? Oh, this will be new to you. Okay, great. So we call this situation 2 real solutions. This situation, 1 real solution. Its multiplicity will be 2. You don't have to worry about that. This situation, 0 real, but we will have 2 what we'll call complex or imaginary. It will use the number I, where I is the square root of -1. We'll get into that in a couple of days. So it's going to be a fascinating thing. It'll open up your brain. That is an upside down question mark. This is how we write I in math. Just a little squiggle on the bottom, and then it's the square root of -1. Okay, cool. But for most of the situations we're going to deal with the rest of the class, we're talking about 2 solutions. It's easy to find them if they are in factored form. If you see a factored form, boom, 3, -7, boom, 0 and 5. If they're in factored form, but it's a little bit crazy, it's still going to be easier to find them quickly than using any other method. But this is a little bit more difficult. We got 2x plus 7 times 3x minus 12. We're back in the factoring notes. We're on the second page of the factoring notes. Found it? Found it? Found it?
Second page.
Yeah, found it? Anybody find it? Right here. Now this one over here, I can easily find 1. 5. Right? How do you find the other one?
Graph it.
Good. You can always graph it. It's always a backup. Okay? I can't see it obviously, but I can solve an equation. Subtract 1, 4x is equal to -1. Divide by 4, x equals -1/4. We will sometimes have solutions that are not whole numbers, but if we have a correct factored form, we'll be able to find the solutions easily. So for this situation, I can't see either. I could probably find this one out really easily. Set up two equations and solve them. And you'll be able to figure out the x's that'll make a piece of it 0. If you have something 0 times anything else, 0 times anything is 0. Focus, go, please. Solve those two equations that you set up. Right over here. Subtract 7, divide by 2. I get x is equal to negative 7/2. Add 12, divide by 3. I get x equals 4. For this equation, I have two solutions, negative 7/2 and 4. This is using what we call the zero product property. Anything times 0 is 0. All right? So what we're going to do for the rest of the ones is we're going to solve these by factoring, but we're going to check using our calculator. All right? Now, before we start factoring, let's remember how to factor. If I have two things, we want to try to pull out something that both things have in common. If I set this equal to 0, I can easily see, okay, 0 and negative 5 would solve this. If I have multiple things, but it's a difference in their perfect squares, we could talk about the difference of squares. If you have a squared minus b squared, you can write it as a plus b times a minus b. This turns into 2x plus 5 and 2x minus 5. You will have negative 5/2 and positive 5/2 as your answer if you set this equal to 0. Easy factoring, x squared minus 10x plus 24. Two numbers that add to get negative 10 and multiply to get 24. Negative 6, negative 4. 6 and 4, therefore, would be my solutions to this equation set equal to 0. And then finally, we go to our toughest. Remember, this was the easy factor. This is the tough factor. To solve this equation set equal to 0, you multiply a and c together first. You have b. You find the two numbers that multiply to get 30 and add to get 17. We then split this into those two numbers, 6x squared plus 10x plus 7x plus 5. We will then factor all that we can from both of them. It should work. 2x, giving me 3x plus 5. What just happened? Thanks, guys. All right, look, hey, I am a proud teacher right now. Thank you very much. Good job, all of you who were like, what are you doing, Mr. Messner? It means you're really like active and paying attention, and I'm very happy. Oh, no, that's good. I was confused too. I'm like, what just happened? All right, so 3x gets pulled out. I get 2x plus 5, right? And then a 1 gets pulled out, so I have 2x plus 5. That gives me 2x plus 5 times 3x plus 1. If I see this, though it's a little bit more work, I can't just easily see the answer like 6 and 4. I can set up two very simple equations, linear equations, that I can solve by isolating my variable, subtract, then divide. So subtract 5, divide by 2, I get negative 5/2. Subtract 1, divide by 3, I get negative 1/3. And again, I'm putting these equal to 0, so I have this equation that I'm solving. All right, here we go. Your turn. Fumble. Ugh. Everybody, stack to the left side. Go. No. Stack to the left side. This is an easy factor. Easy factor to the left side. Two numbers that add to get 7 and multiply to get 10. What are they? What are they? No, you were doing that on purpose. Okay, now hold on, Miss Chisholm. Hold on, everybody. Don't just write down 5 and 2 are your answers, because that's not right. We write this in its factored form, x plus 5 times x plus 2. That equals 0. That equals 0. Now, which numbers make the left side 0? -5 and -2. It's not 5 and 2. It ends up being the opposite because it'll make these pieces 0. Okay. I don't believe in my teacher. I don't trust what he says, but I do trust technology. Graph this. Y equals this. Graph y equals 0. And then see if I lied to you or not. That's the spirit. Question technology. Siri's listening to everything anyways. Who knows what she's trying to get us to do. Come on, where are we? Come on, we can do this. Please. Please, for me. Please. Okay. Do you see it? Do you see them?
Yeah.
You know what? You don't even have to find the intersection. You can literally just trace over to -2 and see that the y is 0. Trace over to -5, see the y is 0. You see it? Yeah, I'm excited too. All right. Please solve this quadratic equation by factoring. And if you don't believe in yourself, use your calculator.
Algebra 2 is so much easier than algebra 1.
It's the same thing. These are my notes I use for my Algebra 1 students. I used to teach Algebra 1. I climbed the ladder pretty quickly. I used to, every other day, be in DAEP, and every other day be in Algebra 1. So they hired me because they needed tutors in DAEP to tutor math. So I would tutor math. I had a great time up there. Tutor math during the day, and then the other day I would teach Algebra 1. That was what I was originally hired to do.
-5 minus -2 is -7.
Yeah, but that's not, no. The answers are -5 and -2. Solve this equation. Because this quadratic crosses y equals 0 at x equals -5 and x equals -2. But you understand why?
No.
So like this turns into this, okay? Now, I want the left side, Mr. Stein, to equal the right side. What is the right side? Okay. What number can I plug in? Right, because it makes this 0, and 0 times anything is 0. Got it? All right, what's this factored form? Come on, what are we doing here? Let's go. Yeah, you can factor. Yes, you can factor. It's not 6 and 4. It's 12 and 2. Write down the correct version of 12 and 2, please. Everybody do it individually. Good. Very good. Thank you. Miss Pierce, what are the two numbers that add to get negative 10 and multiply to get negative 24? No. Close, though. That would give you positive 24. No, let's go with 12 and 2. Give me the correct signs of 12 and 2. Miss Pierce is doing it. It's 12 and 2. I'm telling you 12 and 2. But which one's positive, which one's negative? Or are they both negative, or are they both positive? Negative 2? Negative 12 plus 2. Negative 12 plus 2 gives me negative 10. Okay? Now, I put you on the spot, so under pressure, it's okay. We're good. But we should be able to do that comfortably. Okay, now, Ms. Pierce, you just wrote this like this. I'm going to keep you under pressure. What are the numbers that I can plug in for x that would make this left side equal to 0? Come on. This, what would make this piece 0? 12. What would make, yeah, see? These two numbers plugged in here give you 0 on the left side. It's pretty cool because we can factor and then we can solve. All right. This one really quickly. Go. Well, we are going to the next problem, but we need to be able to do x squared plus 2x minus 8. Okay, x plus 4 times x minus 2 is the factored form of this, but our answers would be negative 4 and positive 2. Okay. Everybody pay attention. This is important. What is different about this equation compared to the other three equations that we've already solved, Mr. DeGeese? It's not equal to 0. Make it equal to 0. Everybody write that down somewhere. The key to quadratics is we don't want factored forms equal to numbers. You never want a factored form equal to numbers. Why not? Right. It's not obvious what our answers to this equation are. Right, Mr. Steck? Tell me, what number do I plug in for x so that x times x plus 3 equals 6? You don't know, right? But, Mr. Steck, what if I turn that 6 to a 0? Could you tell me the numbers that would make this left side equal to 0? What are they? What are they? What would make this 0? Look at it and tell me. What would make this 0? What would make this 0 when x is? So this is helpful. Having it equal to a number is not helpful. Mr. Steck did not help me with that example because he didn't know what to do for either of them. However, this is what we're going to do. We are going to move everything onto one side so that we have a positive x squared and we have it equal to 0. Whenever you have a quadratic, whoever packs up first, I'm calling you out and you're leaving class last. Mr. Charles, what is x squared minus 6x minus 16 factored? I need the factored form of this. Who else am I calling out?
I got it. Now I don't go.
Mr. Cherba, put your phone away and tell me how to factor x squared minus 6x minus 16. What two numbers add to get negative 6 and multiply to get negative 16? Mr. Quinn?
Would it be 8 and -2?
-8 and +2.
That's what I got.
Okay, now Mr. Charles, Mr. Quinn hooked you up and put this quadratic into this form. Tell me what the answers are to this equation. If you look at this,
-8 and
no.
Oh, you gotta flip them, -2 and +8.
-2 and +8 solve this equation, which solves this equation, which solves this equation. Literally, 8 squared equals 6 times 8 plus 16. -2 squared equals 6 times -2 plus 16.
Don't worry about
It's brilliant stuff that we're doing here.